Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and I'm here with attorney Cesar Gavidia, and we're going to talk about long-term disability insurance claims for pediatricians. And in this video, we want to give some expectations as to what you should expect for applying for a disability claim, or if you've been denied through some scenarios that we've experienced through the countless pediatricians that we've represented over the years. And Caesar, the thing I like these pediatricians to understand right away is that when you present a long-term disability claim to the disability company, the person reviewing your claim is not a pediatrician. So you shouldn't feel
Right.
like you're colleague to colleague. You're having your claim reviewed by, if you're lucky, someone who's college educated. However, often they're not.
Right.
And they're basically just going to pick up a book, which is called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, and they're going to look at what it says for pediatrician. And
Right.
they're going to think that means that kids come in, you look at them, you look in their ears, you look in their throat, you give them a lollipop, and you write them a script, and you tell them to go home. But it's far more than that, and obviously the education to get there is significantly more than that. So how do you go about presenting the occupational duties of a pediatrician? And second to that, how do you correlate that with the definition of disability, which is
Sure.
different for every pediatrician?
Right. So, with pediatricians, as with most physicians, you're dealing with a specific own occupation disability policy, hopefully. It's a policy that they probably took out soon after they graduated from medical school, and they are now, unfortunately, after some years of practice and dealing with whatever medical issue they're suffering, are now finding themselves, submitting a disability claim. So what they usually are looking for in terms of a way to determine what that pediatrician's occupational duties are is they'd ask for a delivery of production codes, providing the insurance company with CPT codes. So those CPT codes would basically quantify and express to the insurance company and represent to them what volume of procedures that particular pediatricians performed, what type of if it's office examinations, clinics, rounds, injections, physicals, all of those things are kind of quantified in those CPT codes. So that's something that the insurance company is going to ask for almost immediately as soon as that disability claim is submitted.
But with most pediatricians, the codes are going to be similar because while if you're a pediatric type, if you're a surgeon who focuses on children, you're not a general pediatric, and the pediatricians don't really do surgery. They might do a couple internal things. Obviously, they can do some stitches in the office, but they don't do surgical procedures. So the codes are usually the same, not as important for pediatricians. Now, pediatricians very often have to make hospital rounds, which can be very demanding. Obviously, for newborn delivery babies, they're regularly within the hospital. But it's also the demand of the cognitive difficulties and not the difficulties, but the cognitive demands. And then obviously you can have cognitive difficulties because you always have to be dialed in and know your patients. And
Right.
Caesar, and what results in the cognitive difficulties is often that the claimant, the pediatrician, has a pain disorder, whether it's from their neck, their back, their knees, an autoimmune disorder, whatever it may be, and they say, I just can't get focused. I don't feel like I'm all there. I feel like I'm cloudy, or I have trouble remembering, did I write a script, did I not write a script? I mean, I'm seeing 40 children a day. And how
Right.
do you go about proving the cognitive difficulty, even though it's secondary to a neck or back or shoulder or knee, whatever it may
Sure.
be,
Well, I mean, the
condition?
first thing the first thing we're doing is doing a really comprehensive review of all the medical records. All right, so that's extremely important. I mean, the whole foundation of this whole disability, this entire disability claim, is the evidence that's found within the medical records for this pediatrician. So if there's a degree of cognitive problems or deficits, then what we need to do is see if the medical records correlate to that. If they evidence that. Oftentimes, if we're going outside of the records that we have, possibly having a neuropsychological assessment conducted. All right, and that's basically where they'll go to a neuropsychologist to administer a very exhaustive and comprehensive test that often takes a number of hours to assess the level of cognitive decline that pediatrician is experiencing.
And then also with the neuropsych exams, and I'll often recommend those, it's not necessarily that they may show a cognitive difficulty. And again, it depends how they feel on that particular day. But pain is subjective. There's no machine in the world to say, yes, you're in pain, no, you're not in pain.
Right.
But when you do this neuropsych exams, which the disability carriers often ask for, they're looking for the validity of their symptoms. Are they overstating their symptoms? Are they malingering? Are they exaggerating their symptoms? And these neuropsychological exams have validity testing factors which show this person is not exaggerating, they're not malingering, they're credible. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's one of the only type of pain validity type measurement tools that we have out there. So it's a strategic tool that used in the right way can help support a pediatrician's claim that they're having difficulties focusing and doing their job. The other thing, Cesar, is that as a pediatrician, you have good days and bad days. Does a pediatrician really have the luxury of saying, I don't feel like coming in today? Not every practice has 3 or 4 pediatricians. Who's going to fill in that day when there's always a log of 12 to 20 patients or more that are supposed to come in that day?
Right. So the answer is no one's going to fill in for them. The average pediatrician is running their own personal practice, or if they're working at a large group practice, okay, maybe they can have a doctor fill in. But like most parents, Greg, you and I, we want our children seen by the pediatrician that generally always sees them, right?
Right. Yeah, and people build that relationship and they want that too. Now, Cesar, you've dealt with this in some of our other cases where someone has a orthopedic type issue or Parkinson's or carpal tunnel or whatever, conditions like that.
Yeah.
And the pediatricians, our clients, say, look, I examine these children. It's not so much that I have to lift them, although often, I may have to maneuver them on a table or whatever. But the exams are difficult. Kids don't sit still like adults. They don't want me to touch them. I need to feel for different things just like I do with adults, whatever, the full body exam. And they're moving around. And often I got to get down in different positions that I don't usually do with an adult, because babies especially. The other thing is that babies and young children don't communicate what's going on with them. And so diagnosis by a pediatrician is tremendously important without any feedback as to what's going on. So having your full motor skills, sensitivities, the ability to flex and do everything is super important for a pediatrician. And what's the pediatrician's biggest nightmare? That they miss something. Any doctor, right?
Right.
And so it reaches the point where the doctor goes, look, yeah, I might have been working through this condition for a year or 2 years, but I got to the point where I just feel like I can't effectively deliver the medical care that I'm giving an oath that I would provide. And so I'm not messing with someone's life. I'm not going to miss something. And that's the point that we communicate as lawyers. Now, Cesar, the disability carriers turn around and go, well, we hear what you're saying and we see all your medical records, but we saw you on video surveillance and we saw your social media profile. How often
we saw
are
you
those
on
types
vacation in Acapulco or something, and it seems like everything is fine, or and that's one of the biggest issues in terms of social media, is that you're opening the door to the insurance company and for them to see basically everything you do and that you post that's going on in your daily life. And certainly they will be more than happy to take that all completely out of context.
Right, and so most pediatricians have individual disability policies and don't necessarily work for an employer or a big group where they have a group disability policy. So they will potentially get their day in court. They will have the opportunity to be heard, as opposed to if you have an employer-provided policy, it's straight based upon your appeal. There's no jury trial. There's no testimony usually. And you're at the mercy as to whether or not the insurance company did a reasonable review. But in the typical private disability insurance policy, it comes down to credibility. And the disability companies are going to fight this based upon your credibility. And it may not be they got you on video or they saw your social media profile. It may be that you recently applied for hospital privileges and they asked if you had any medical conditions and you said no. Or you applied for a loan or malpractice coverage and they said, do you have any medical issues? And you said no. They look to get you on one misstatement or one statement that might be slightly inconsistent, and they take that one statement and use it against you for everything.
Yep.
So it's like it takes a lifetime to build a reputation, and it takes a second to ruin it.
Yeah.
That's the method of review that disability insurance companies use to review your claims. So, in summary, Cesar, we talked about super important to understand the occupation of a pediatrician and present that accordingly. It's super important to understand the medical condition and have as much medical support as you can and document it tremendously. And what I suggest for claimants who are watching this video, whether you work with our law firm or not, is that you go and you search your disability company and you look at all the information that we have available there, whether it's additional videos on your company where we provide tips for how to handle your claim, whether it's questions and answers that we've dealt with regarding people who have your company, whether it's reviews about the company. We want all of our potential clients to be educated about this process. We really want you to understand, because the more you understand, the better you're going to be able to go into your doctor and articulate what needs to be done, the better you're going to think about how the disability company is going to look at your claim. I hate to analogize this to war, but don't you always want to think about what your enemy is going to do so that you can anticipate that action? And unfortunately, can be a battle. I mean,
You have to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of the insurance company. It's a chess match. And if you're not thinking that way, you're setting yourself up to be potentially denied. I mean, there's no question that they do this every single day. This is your very first time, probably one of your, if not your first time, one of your first times. You certainly haven't done this as much and as often as the insurance company has.
And especially for pediatricians, unlike our other doctors, they're not filling out disability forms on a routine basis like many of our other doctors who treat adults. They at least have a flavor, the other doctors, because kids don't file for private disability and long-term disability coverage. Maybe Social Security disability for a severely disabled child. Totally different world, though. So pediatricians are at a bit of a disadvantage because they don't deal with it basically at all. So the key is to be prepared. No matter what stage your claim's at, if you're applying, you've applied, you've been denied, call Cesar, call myself. We'll walk you through the entire process. We'll review your policy. We'll give you our opinion as to how we think we can help you. We're available to help you anywhere in the country. And we appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And we'll be here should you need us in the future. Thank you.